Good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you all here. Nice to see so many people this time of the day. And let me share with you my book so you can follow what we're going to study today. So we have stopped on item 85 of the chapter is spontaneous physical manifestations, reminding everyone that this is not a lecture, this is a study. And as such, please feel free to make questions, express yourselves, say what you think, what you don't think about it, like I don't agree with something, and share your experiences as well, because that's the best way to learn together. All right? So let's start today. We have already stated that physical manifestations are meant to call our attention to something and to convince us that there is a superhuman power present. There is a duck too. I can hear a duck. And we also stated that highly evolved spirits do not concern themselves directly with the manifestations. And that, let me just do something here, guys, just a minute. And that change, just a minute. It's still having some noise here. Let me just see. Okay, seems to be okay now. So I think that was on my end. So let me start again. We have already stated that physical manifestations are meant to call our attention to something and to convince us that there is a superhuman power present. Let's start talking about this part of the test. Yeah, physical manifestations is indeed to get our attention. Otherwise, we wouldn't notice. We wouldn't even think about it. As we saw in the beginning of the book, everything started on the Spiritism with a physical manifestation of the tables to get attention of the right people, even Kardec. That's how the spirits got his attention. So if we do face in our lifetime any manifestation, any phenomena, chances are that probably the universe is trying to tell us something, is trying to get our attention to something else. Otherwise, they would not bother, let me say like that, they would not bother to have a manifestation around us. So if the manifestation exists, it's to get our attention. And he's saying something about superhuman. Well, we know by now that spirits are human spirits, right? So we are human anyway, if we are on the flesh or not. We have also stated that in highly evolved spirits do not concern themselves directly with these manifestations, that they use less evolved spirits to produce them. Just as we use servants for heavier tasks, highly evolved spirits do so for the purpose we have just indicated. I think there is a misunderstanding in the common concept about this sentence. Highly evolved spirits do not do physical manifestations because they can't, right? Highly evolved spirits can't do physical manifestations. We already studied that high evolved spirits, the perispirits is so light that they are not able to interact with the matter, with our matter. That's why they need less evolved spirits to do so, because less evolved spirits like we are pretty much face to face with us, hand to hand. Unlike that, they still have a dense perispirit that is required to do physical manifestations. Quite often we see on the Spiritist movement that highly evolved spirits don't know, so all the spirits that do, they are evil then. They are not evolved, they are evil. So there's a very common misunderstanding that I would like to bring to your attention. So when we refer to it, regardless how it's written, it's not because they are evil. The perispirit is dense in comparison with evolved spirits. That's why evolved spirits need less evolved spirits to do so. It's not because any physical manifestation is evil or is not evolved. It's not that. But if you read quickly, that's the take of most of the people, all right? After such purpose has been achieved, and since it's no longer needed, then the manifestation ceases. It depends. It really depends, right? I agree that when the manifestation is no longer needed, it will stop as anything else in life, right? But it also gives us an idea that it will happen for like a week or 2 weeks or a period of 6 months. And we do have examples in the Spiritism, on the books, also on the practice, that the physical manifestation lasts for years, many years. And one that came to my mind right now only ceased when the medium who was supporting that activity passed away. He did that for 20 years, right? So we should keep in our mind that regardless of the phenomena, there's an enormous quantity or variety of examples that differ from the first one to the last one. Yes, often we'll have a physical manifestation that will last a period of time and that's it. But there are some that last for many years because that is the work to be done. So the physical manifestation remains as long as the job is not completed, all right? One or two examples will make the matter more intelligible. Several years ago, when I first began my study of Spiritism, I was involved with a subject one evening when I heard raps that sounded all around me for 4 consecutive hours. It was the first time that this had happened. I verified that there was no incidental cause involved. This is very, very important. Every time we feel like we are seeing a physical manifestation or a spiritist manifestation or a spirit manifestation, we have by duty to eliminate every other possibility. Otherwise, we could be misguided, right? Look what Kardec said. When he had that experience, his first reaction was to eliminate anything else before he considered that as plausible. But at the moment, I was not able to learn any more about it. You see what we spoke earlier today, that he was exposed, Kardec was exposed to physical phenomena to get his attention. What he's saying here, basically, he had no information about how he was, what he was. And even like that, because he was a science man, when he was exposed to it, his first reaction was to eliminate anything else, right? So I frequently met with an excellent writing medium. So the next day I questioned the spirit who normally communicate through him as to what had caused the raps. Let me stop here to make some comments as well. He's referring to an excellent writing medium. What does it mean? Does it mean that the person were used to write? we're used to the practice. It's not because it was better, A in comparison to B. It was an excellent writing medium because of the commitment, because of the how serious the person was. And to be considered a good medium is a couple of things we need to consider. And Kardec knew this medium in particular, and he was relying on this medium, right? And another thing very important too is spirit who normally communicate through. It's like us here. I know some of you already, right? For a couple of months, couple of years, like, so we start to create like a relationship of trust. So probably I will trust you guys better than someone that I'll find in the streets tomorrow, right? On the Spiritism world is the same. We start to be acquainted to those spirits. We start to hear what they have to say. We start to see what they are producing. We have to see the fruit from the tree, right? And after a period of time working, or at least being with those spirits, we start to trust them. It's not like any spirit will come to us, give us information, and we blindly believe in what they are saying. We cannot do like that. If we do like that, we are asking for problems, for trouble. The spirit answered me. It was your familiar spirit wanting to speak to you. So it was a spirit related to Kardec that was trying to get his attention to talk to him. And what did he want to say to me? You can ask him yourself, because he's right here. So I asked him, and he identified himself using an allegorical name. Other spirits told me afterwards that he belonged to a very high order and that he had performed a very important role on earth. He pointed out errors in my work, indicating the exact lines where I could find them. So let's think about, we are working, we are doing something, and then a spirits make a noise in our homes, and you have the opportunity to talk to them afterwards. And he started to give us positive advice. Hi, Pablo, go on.
Just reflecting on what we had read just before, that the high spirits cannot interact with matter. So in this case, we can assume that this high spirit used another spirit to cause the effect, and that someone around Kardec must have been a medium, because, well, from what I understand, Kardec was not a medium himself. So for the effect to be displayed, shown, someone else should be around for this to be happening.
Aha. Very nice question. And then I have to bring to everyone's attention that it's not because we are high on earth that we are high on the spiritual world. It's not because we have scientific knowledge on earth that we are evolved spirit. It's not because we are very conversant with any kind of science or technology or anything on earth that when we die, we will be high evolved spirits. No, we will retain our knowledge, but the knowledge doesn't mean moral evolution. And when it's written here, told me afterwards that he belonged to a very high order and that he had performed very important role on earth. He had performed very important role on earth, not in the spiritual world. I have no reference in this part of the text saying that he was an evolved spirit. I have a reference saying that he could be like a president, he could be like a very important doctor, a scientist, he could be anything that for us on earth we would bow, but not on the spiritual world. I don't see that in the test. Hi, Munir.
Hello, everyone. Good morning again. I'm going to use something that Guilherme said about 2 Saturdays ago. We hardly know things about spirits at our level. So we can't just come to a conclusion when it comes to evolve the spirits. Here, I see that, Kardec says it's high order, and I understand it's a very high spiritual order. Not so much, the importance of the role the person had, but high order. But for us to come to a conclusion to say it's this, it's that, it's very, very difficult. And how then could we explain what Jesus did in material terms after dying? He his life, when he returned after death, physical death, he returned and he performed a lot of physical manifestation. And so wasn't Jesus then doing that? So I think it's very difficult to come to a conclusion, as Guilherme said once, when it comes to spirits at our level, let alone spirits of highly evolved spirits.
The way, Munir, I think you understood the test in a different way than I did, if I understood correctly. What is in coma here? Other spirits told me afterwards that he belonged to a very high order. And he had a very important role on earth. But I don't see a reference saying that he was Chico Xavier, for example. High order on earth could be anything else. So I have a different take, and that's very positive. We had 2 different takes here.
Yeah, because I see high order, spiritual order. But because then he said, here, and he performed a very important role on earth.
I don't see that word, very high spiritual order. So that's why I'm not inclined to say that.
Okay.
Right? I see your point. You're relating that an important role on earth, therefore, is an evolved spirit. But I see important roles on earth that people are not that evolved, depending of the person, really. But
yeah, well, it's Christine from Australia. Just my understanding, very high order. Just from what I understand, and obviously you're all more you have more knowledge than me in this area, but very high order to me, from what I understand from Spiritism, is that you go up the ladder, if you like, the more that you've learnt, the examples and the learnings you've learned as a spirit on earth and an incarnate. And when you're disincarnate, you become a higher order. Is that not what this is saying? Or is that incorrect?
The way I see, no. I'll give you an example. We have Stephen Hawking. He was the highest order scientist in our generation. He was the top in our generation. He died. It does not mean that when he died, his spirit became a high order spirit. He may have a high order knowledge of science, but it doesn't mean that he's evolved. So that's my take. But I'm not saying who is right or who is wrong. I think everyone is right. I'm just showing a different perspective.
Hi, Valerie here. I'm looking at the same time at the French version of the text, and the way it's written, actually pretty like in English, it looks to me like he's saying he's from a high order, and then he's saying, and on earth he had a important level too. So it looks to me like Munir was right, and it could have been a very high order on a spirit level.
It's possible. And then we have 2 information that are antagonic. We have one information that a very evolved spirits cannot do physical manifestations, and we have this one. And then what Munir said is very good too, because we know very little. So sometimes there's no right or wrong, you know? Yeah, thank you. Liz?
Hi, everybody. I just want to mention the fact that in the footnotes, Kardec actually explained that this spirit was the spirit of light, who actually helped him codify all of the 5 major books for Spiritism. So he would have been a highly evolved spirit to have that breadth of knowledge.
Liz, I had a very hard time to understand you. The line was cutting.
All right, I'll move a bit. In the footnotes that we are reading at the moment, Allan Kardec explains that the spirit that was communicating with him throughout, and where he mentions it here, was the spirit of light. And that spirit of light helped him codify all 5 books of the Spiritist information, which required a very, very high breadth of knowledge. Mm-hmm. So he would have been an evolved spirit, highly evolved spirit.
Yeah, if we are talking about the same spirit, yes, I don't know.
It refers to, at the bottom on the footnote, it is referring to the actual paragraphs we're reading at the moment.
Okay.
I wanted to question him. Since then, the spirit has in fact never left me. And he's got a 1 by there, and he follows it with the footnote that in the posthumous works, he goes on to explain that it was the spirit of light.
Mm-hmm. So in that case, we have, as I said, 2 contradictory information or incomplete information. Perhaps, as Munir said, he was asking another less evolved spirit to do the wrap around Kardec to get his attention. But we will not know, isn't it? Oh dear, 3 hands. So go, Munir, you first.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Guilherme. We don't know exactly what happened. There was probably a huge team working with Kardec. And we don't know if, he was there, you go there and call his attention. And then we'll come and give him the message. When it was the time to give the message, another spirit came. Because sometimes for us, it's just one spirit doing everything, but we don't know. That's why, you mentioned that very wisely, that, we know very little about spirits at our level. To know about spirits who are much higher, in the spiritual hierarchy, we just, have no elements to do that. So we don't know exactly what happened in this case. We know there were reps calling his attention, and then later came a highly evolved spirit to help Kardec with the work. But how many spirits were involved in this? We have no idea. Who did that? We don't know.
I cannot answer saying yes or no, and that's why I said there's no right or wrong, is what it is. But one thing that's very positive is that we have people talking. We have people, by the comments we hear, we see that people are understanding the matter. People are really doing the study. I love it. So we had 2 hands, and now I see only Liz's hand. Go, Liz.
I just wanted to clarify something. Maybe it's my edition of the book, but on this footnote, I need to read it. It says, in the posthumous works, part 2, communication dated March the 25th of 1856, Kardec reveals that this spirit was the spirit of truth, who guided the entire codification, comprising the 5 fundamental books: the Spirit's Book, the Medium's Book, the Gospel according to Spiritism, Heaven and Hell, and Genesis. So here it says that same spirit helped him with the entire codification.
Very good. And there are even some people on the Spiritist movement that say he was someone very special, but I don't like to go on that avenue because I don't know. So yeah, but very nice, very nice. So he gave me useful and wise advice and added that he would always be with me and would answer me whenever I wanted to question him. Since then, this spirit has, in fact, never left me. He was given me numerous highly valuable proofs, and his benevolent and effective intervention has helped me both with the everyday problems of physical life and with metaphysical ones. Something came to my mind here. Most of people, when they want to, most of mediums, when they want to start to work their mediumship, one of the first things that comes to them, their mind is, I want to be protected. Because at the moment, I'm really alone and I may be target from evolved or not evolved spirits, if I can say like that. And the best way to ensure that we have spiritual friends around us is through charity and work. Commitment, charity, and work. And we think that it is only related to spiritual matters, but it's not. Even Kardec is saying here that his friend was helping him with problems of physical life. He was not giving him money, nothing like that. That's not the idea. But when we are surrounded by those evolved spirits, even our physical life benefits from it, because we cannot split who we are into pieces. And if they are around us, they are also helping us. However, ever since, and just to let you know, guys, I tried to win the lottery many times and did not work. So it doesn't mean they will give you anything special like that, all right? Hi, Yasmin.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, Guilherme, you mentioned the best way to have protection is to perform charity and, sorry, I don't remember, charity. And,
Commitment.
well, I would add, huh?
Charity, commitment.
Oh, commitment. And I would add something which I think might be really important. It's self-renovation. I'm not sure in English. Reforma íntima in Portuguese. I think it's really, maybe it's the most important because, well, acts are based on our thoughts. But if we just act without a good base, well, it will stay acts. And I mean, I worked a lot with children. If children would see me do things but say the contrary, they would not believe me and they would disrespect me, and it would be a mess. So my acts have to be the same as my thoughts and what I tell to earn disrespect. And yes,
yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed, I totally agree with you. That inner change is consequence of our commitment, our charity, and our work. That's how we start to change. We don't change just for the sake of reading a book. We don't. Reading a book will give us the initial push, the ideas, how to change, for example. But only when we put our hands on, we really change. Well, that's the way I see it, right? However, ever since that first conversation, the raps have ceased. What did he in fact want? He wanted to establish regular communication with me, but to do so, he had to alert me to his presence. I'll come back here, let's just a little bit more. Having done so, he explained his motives and we established a regular relationship. The raps were no longer necessary. It is no longer necessary to beat a drum to awaken soldiers when they have already arisen. That's beautiful. How sometimes we think that I'm not medium, I don't hear anything, I don't see anything. I don't want to be a medium, by the way, because this scares me and that seems to be hard work. I don't want to be a medium. And eventually something happens. For Kardec was the rap. To other mediums could be an obsession. To other mediums could be a disease. To other mediums could be many examples I can give you here. But the aim is always the same, to get people's attention. Get people's attention and possibly to take them to the right place where they can be acquainted with the information to help them out. Through my time in the Spiritism, I think I can fairly say that 89, maybe 90% of people end up in the Spiritism center with some problem. That's the way they appear. From those 90%, let's say 10%, 15% remain, and the other ones disappear afterwards. But what I'm trying to say is the great majority of people that end up in the Spiritism are because they are having some sort of problem or some sort of unknown situation where they need to find something. Very little people come to Spiritism by love, because they like it, because they believe, very little people. So there are so many different types of awakened situations. And the most important to all of us is to recognize those situations. Sometimes it's not even with us, it's someone in our family. But we are so close to this person that we have to do something to help him or her. And then we end up in a center or start reading books to try to identify what is going on. There's always that type of call. And sometimes we don't pick up the phone. But when we do, quite often it's positive. Even if we don't want to stay, it's positive because it allows you to understand what's going on with you or someone you love, to help them through those starry waters. A very similar case involved one of our friends. For quite some time, he had heard various noises around his room, and which become very annoying. Having an opportunity to interview his father, Spirit, via a writing medium, he learned that what it was that those spirits wanted. He fulfilled their request, and from then on, no longer heard the noises. He would point out that persons who have regular and easy means of communicating with the spirits are much less subject to manifestations of this kind, which is understandable. If I am in an environment that I can easily talk to a spirit once a week, twice a week, or there's no such a rule for a spirit to talk to you, right? We humans, we elaborate rules, and that's very nice, it's soundable, it's plausible. But if I'm beside a medium And if the spirit really need to talk to me, you give a kick on the medium and he starts to talk. And that's the way sometimes they help us, and they even give us instructions. I had so many examples. I'm not going to give any here, but we do not control the spiritual world. It's the other way around. When they find the need to do something, they will make it happen. Even as Kardec here, they found a way to make noises to get his attention from this man of science. I had an example of a very clever doctor. He was very renowned in his area, but he could not help his son. Was his area of expertise, and he could not help his son. That was the way he found the Spiritism. And after a period of time, the problem was gone. And as a doctor, he went to do new exams. And the problem was not there anymore. I'll let you explain that. So that I'm just giving that example because there are so many things to get our attention, even to have a massive wake-up call that we cannot describe all of them here. Spontaneous manifestations are not always limited to noises or raps. They sometimes generate into a veritable racket and disturbances. Oh, sorry. And we have examples like the Sister Fox, like haunted houses and things like that. So there are so many types of physical manifestations, right? Furniture and other objects are flipped over. Various projectiles are hurled about outside the room. Doors and windows are opened and closed by invisible hands, and window span are broken. None of this can be attributed to illusion. This disorder is quite often very real, though at times it is only apparent. A racket may be heard in an adjoining room. The cache of dinnerware is it apparently hits the floor, or logs of wood rolling around. Then, when one runs to investigate, everything is found to be peaceful and in order. However, leave the room and the tumult starts all over again. That example, I think, is more common because we hear things clearly, as he described here, but we don't have the objects or anything really happening to our eyes, right? Such manifestations are neither rare nor new, and there are few local chronicles that do not contain some account of this type. There is no doubt that fear has often exaggerated the facts, which have assumed gigantically ridiculous proportions when passed from one person to the next. With the help of superstition, the houses in which such phenomena occur have been considered as being haunted by the devil. Until today, by the way. Hence, all the fantastic and horrifying fables of ghosts. And the other day was funny. Yasmin, can you tell us a little bit about those houses that are empty in Japan?
So yes, I have so yes. Usually, I don't know recently, but in the past, a family would stay in a house for all his life, and when the family says, usually the grandfather, the grandparents would die, no one would sell the house or destroy it or live there. On the contrary, they would build another house near that house to live in it. That's very interesting. And so you can see a lot, as I was telling, you can see a lot of abandoned houses in Japan. Well, mostly because of that, I think. Well, mostly because it's, well, like social problems, and I think, well, I won't talk about it here, but yeah. And so there are a lot of abandoned houses. These habits tend to disappear lately, and old houses are started to be sold. But yeah, very interesting.
You see, sometimes we don't have even the right explanation. Perhaps they don't know the right explanation, but deep inside, they felt like even after my family passed away, they're still here. And some of them are, as we know. We have so many visits on mediumship meetings like that. So yeah, when you said that, Yasmin, I think it was last week, I think, that was very nice. I thought, well, very interesting, very interesting. Deception, on the other hand, has not lost the opportunity to exploit such a credulity on its own profit. Even when they are reduced to reality, one may certainly understand the impression that incidents of this kind can have on weak characters who have been predisposed to superstitious notion by education. Let me mark that here, and then I'll read it to the end and we come back. The safest way to avoid the troubles that can arise from these incidents, because they cannot be prevented, is to make the truth known. The simplest incidents become frightening when the causes behind them are unknown. When there is finally widespread familiarity with the spirits, and when those with whom they communicate no longer believe they are dealing with a legion of demons, fear will disappear completely. Let's go back. Let me mark here something. Otherwise I will forget. So let's go back to the predisposed and superstitious. To a certain extent, we all are predisposed to superstitions. We have to remember that we are eternal beings that have been incarnated on earth for centuries. So what I am now does not define me. Perhaps I was Catholic, perhaps I was Buddhist, perhaps I was anything you think. Even before that, even before Jesus, perhaps I was gathering so much information through my reincarnations, and this does not disappear. Let's go now back to my last incarnation, where I was very superstitious. I'm bringing some of it to this current incarnation too. So this is normal to find, right? Even in the Spiritism, when I see people bringing a bit from there and there, it's very normal because we are bringing something that we are comfortable with. Sometimes that's not even in Spiritism, but we feel comfortable with. But why I'm saying that? Because superstition leads us to fear. Most of superstitions are related to fear. Don't eat this because you get sick. Don't do that at this time of the day because you get sick. Don't do that because you attract evil spirits. Don't do that. It's always related to fear. And there's only one way to dissipate that fear, is educating ourselves. Even on a mediumship meeting, where in theory we all being acquainted to the basics of Kardec's knowledge, sometimes when one spirit comes, I can see in the faces, oh dear, this is not going to work well. Oh my God, what I'm doing here. I hope I never have to deal with a spirit like that. Because we still have those burdens from what we were before, and it increases our fear. the fear of the unknown. So once again, what is the best thing to do? Study, get acquainted to the information that will bring us comfort to deal with. Even sometimes when the spirit comes to the meeting saying, I'm the devil. Be welcome, my friend. I'm working for the devil. Be welcome, my friend. Because we know a bit better now. Hi, listen, go on.
Yeah, some things came to my mind because I've been a very superstitious person in the past. And I've been trying to get knowledge to, think, Elizabeth, that is absolutely ridiculous. How can you think about it? And then the more I learned about it, and now with the understanding that I have in my life, after all these years of living in this earth, I just, some of us really like to have a reality that is very adorned and full of little things, and not attend to the fact that things are just so natural. Mediumship that we study today, always been adorned with the magical and with the superhuman, supernatural. And when we say, oh, someone is a medium, it automatically puts something on that person that comes away from being just another person, being just a human being. And it is something that really we have to put our attention to, as you said, Guilherme. We all of us have a tendency to the superstitious in one way or the other, but it's always important for us to say, it is really a natural phenomenon. And when we read the Medium's book, Kardec puts it in so many ways. It's just a natural phenomenon. And even as you say, if something seems supernatural, it's because we don't understand the process that it happens. Therefore, we can't identify the natural order of it all within the reality. Mm-hmm. So it is really important. And when we say about devil and things like that, yeah, keep calm, don't worry, because it's just our neighbor.
Yes. What you said, Liz, is important. I think that as we move along and we get convinced by ourselves, by what we study, by the logic, by the facts, we start to see everyone as spirits, incarnated and discarnated. When we have that certitude that we are all spirits, then becomes easier to receive brothers and sisters telling us that they are demons or very bad spirits. Becomes easier to understand all those little triggers that we all have that make us superstitious. Becomes easy to understand a little bit better the universal laws we know today, because there are many we don't know yet. So I think the basis of the certitude is accepting the spirit. I think the basis of everything on the spiritism is accepting that we are spirits. And when we accept that we are spirits, we start to make no differences between what we are when we are incarnated and those that are not in flesh and bone at the moment. Because we have nice and bad people here next door on earth, so there's no differences. If there's no differences, we start to see then with a different understanding of each individual situation. I think that's the most important in the Spiritism. Understand what we are. In Revue Spirit, many authentic occurrences of this kind have been recorded, among which are the story of the wrappings spirit of Bergzabern, oh dear, nice word, whose nasty influence lasted 8 years. May, June, and July issues, 1858. That of the spirit of the Belsdorf, August, 1858. That of the baker of the Grand Vent, close to Dieppe, March, 1860. And the one, Noyers Street in Paris, August, 1860. The spirit of Castelnaudary, entitled L'Histoire d'un Damé, February 1860. The one manufacture of St. Petersburg, April 1860, and many others. So yeah, Kardec is bringing to us a lot of examples that I think that if we want, we can dig into the Spiritist magazine to try to find more about it. But have any of you heard anyone that had such experience like that? I'm interested to know if any one of you had any experience like that.
Experience like raps?
Raps, any, yeah?
If I may, I've experienced one. I have a friend, a childhood friend, who told me that they always have had noises in their house, and like knocking coming from the third floor, which is I don't know, le grenier.
Mm-hmm.
And but it was just knocking, and sometimes not so disturbing, but kind of strange. And one day we had a party with our friends in that house, and yeah, we all noticed it, like and we heard it, like, wow, there is nobody upstairs, but there are noises coming from, wow, the roof, wow. And we just left, and well, but yeah, interesting.
So you were always scared, right?
Well, scared, more like, wow, okay, we have to believe it, it's happening, okay. And oh, sorry, you can't see my face. Okay, so we were like, oh wow, okay, so there are noises and there is nobody upstairs, so what should we do? Let's go back down. And we left. Yes, that's all.
Cool. Hi, Liz, your turn. Liz, you're on mute. Liz, you are on mute.
Just to say that our family have things happening nearly on a daily basis. Well, you know, one of our houses, and in a majority of cases, we know that, you know, it's my brother or my son, and sometimes my father. In other cases, we don't. My mother has things like, you know, where it says where the whole dinner set sounds as if it's fallen out of the kitchen cabinet, and we go into the kitchen and there's nothing. So we can see that that's them trying to get our attention. We have lights flashing. Just after my father died, which I didn't think was my father, because it wasn't particularly beneficial. We've had the grill being put on, and Mum came back into the house, and the back door was left open. So those weren't particularly good things. We've had apples and fruit, you know, going across the kitchen. My daughter has the television being put on, the toilet flushed. We knew who those were. Lights flashing. When she held a present from her then boyfriend, it was a necklace. Before she finally unwrapped it, my son pushed it towards the Christmas tree, so she had to go and lift it up. All sorts of things happen. The kettle clicks in agreement with something that we've said. So we get lots and lots of, just little incidences to prove that they're around. Last week I was with two people, my local neighbours, in the garden, and came in from the garden. And this was in pitch dark, and a cabbage white butterfly came into the house with me and kept flying around just the three of us. In the morning, I was worried the cats would get it. In the morning, it was still there when I went to open the kitchen window, and it escaped. But it came of its own volition. We get so many things, but they're beautiful. They're symbols of love, and that we're never alone, in the nicest possible way.
Very nice examples. As we are about to finish, I'll tell you one that struck me in my heart. At the time, I loved to take pictures, and I had those DSLR cameras with long lenses and things. I love it at the time. And I had bought one, brand new one, and I put it on the shelf in a place that was entirely flat, was protected, no wind, no nothing. And I left the room. Blow! Well, my camera was gone. Never worked again. Simply did. I could not find any other explanation. There was no way that could fall or anything else. And that really upset me. That day I was not happy. And yeah, things like that happens. Things like that happens. And it's nice to know when those things happen that there's nothing magical behind that. There's nothing miraculous behind that. It's something natural. So guys, I really want to end our study today here. So